Hello and welcome to Winchester Now, with a roundup of some of the stories making the news in and around our city. I'm Mary Blaxland. In this week's programme we also meet Katie, an inspiring young woman who had eye cancer and is now helping others facing the disease, and find out what's ahead as Hat Fair returns to the city. Winchester Radio. Despite its affluent image, a shocking statistic reveals there are around 8,000 people in the Winchester district who've never learnt to read. The figure has been revealed to Winchester Radio by the voluntary group Read Easy, which provides free one-to-one tuition for adults of all ages. Next week, the organisation holds a celebration evening for those whose lives have been changed by learning to read, and is urging anyone who needs help to get in touch. Here's team leader of Read Easy Winchester, Alan Stevens.
We can help people provided they come forward. We will match them with a coach who will then provide one-to-one tuition for as long as it takes. The secret of success lies in the fact that it's one-to-one, it's free, but more importantly the reader learns at their own pace. So it may take, on average it takes about 18 months. Some instances it can be 2 or even 3 years, but that doesn't matter. We work at the reader's speed.
You say as long as someone comes forward, it must be difficult for people to come forward.
It's very, very difficult for readers to come forward because they're embarrassed by the fact that they can't read, and many of them have become recluse because they've sort of almost dropped out of society because of this disability they feel they have. But that can be easily rectified, and it truly is life-changing. That's why it's so satisfying for all our coach. As chairman, I see every reader, and at each stage I present certificates to them as they progress, so I see their progress myself. And from initially not making eye contact and being very diffident, they greet me like an old friend later on, and it's just wonderful to see that change. And we've got people in their 50s, 60s who voted for the first time in the recent elections. We have one reader called Steve who has become our star reader. He's been on television, he's on radio, he does a lot of interviews. He accompanied me on one presentation I gave at the University of Winchester, and he stood up in front of a group of people and said, "You may not think this, but 2 years ago I couldn't read, couldn't write. I spoke with a lisp and wouldn't go out. Now I'm quite happy to stand before you and talk about the change this has made to my life." He's since written his autobiography to explain how the change came about. It's amazing.
Like I say, we take it all for granted, don't we, being able to read, but it affects so much of your life that people probably don't realise.
Yes, exactly. People are always surprised by the statistics. I feel in Winchester that everyone can read. And often when I've done radio interviews, people have said, well, it's Winchester, people must be able to read. We're not talking about a deprived area. But it is common across the country. There's about 2.4 million people in Britain who can't read.
And things like shopping, getting your medicines, things like that.
Shopping, and the big changes for someone who can read. We've been across people who've been sheltered accommodation who said, oh, it's marvellous, because now when I get a letter from the hospital, I can read it. I don't have to go and hammer on my neighbour's door and ask them to read this letter, which is very private. And just simply reading a menu. I've said to Steve, the reader I mentioned just now, how do you used to get on in a restaurant? And I said, well, I just ordered what all my friends had ordered, but now they can read. And we had another reader, Alison. I think a quote I like from her was that now reading is a pleasure and not a nightmare, and that's exactly what it is. She found it wonderful to learn to read. She could now read to her grandchildren. And what we learned only after she graduated, that she actually had a food allergy, and now suddenly she finds she can impulse shop. She can check the packets herself rather than relying on what her husband has said she can or cannot eat. The freedom is just tremendous.
Must be incredibly moving for you to see that.
Very much is so, and the thanks which we get from our readers, it's very, very gratifying to see this change, and some of them go on to further education. In fact, everyone who completes the course changes their job. They all go on to a better job. The figures were only released before Christmas, I think last year, that on average, if you've got 2 people working side by side, one who can read and one who can't, the non-reader will be paid about $1,500 less a year. So there is this sort of discrimination almost against not being able to read, and yet it's so easily rectified if they only come forward.
And how do people come forward? How do they find out about you?
Obviously it's very difficult, because if they can't read, it's difficult to appeal directly to the reader. So it comes mainly by friends and family who see our adverts in we advertise in supermarkets, churches, a lot of third-party referrals. We have social prescribers who feel that someone would benefit from learning to read, so we get referrals from them, a whole number of organisations.
The friends and family know of someone. Is there a website or a number?
There's a website, is www.readeasy.org, will get you to the Read Easy UK website, where you've got all the information about the group, how you can become a volunteer if you wish to be a volunteer, or what to do if you're a reader and wish to be read. And it covers a lot of information on the groups and a lot of case studies so you can see exactly the difference it's made to people's lives.
And now it's time for some news items across Winchester. I'm Steve Walker and you're listening to Winchester Radio. As you may be aware, Steve Bryan is stepping down as Winchester MP at the next general election. Elected in 2010, he said in a statement it was time for a new chapter in his life. The Conservative Association will now begin the search for a new candidate to stand in the election. And we'll be speaking to Steve Bryan about his time as an MP in a future edition of Winchester Now. A new elective hub at the Royal Hampshire County Hospital in Winchester, which will allow more operations to take place, has moved a step closer. The NHS has approved the business plan and funding for the project. The hub will operate 6 days a week and is predicted to deliver an additional 2,400 procedures each year. It's hoped it will reduce the backlog for elective surgery and cut waiting times. The plans involve refurbishing a floor in the Burrell building to create 2 new theatres and inpatient facilities. It's scheduled to open in early 2025. In response to reports of antisocial behaviour around the Badger Farm area, police are holding a surgery at the local community centre this Friday between 4 and 6 p.m. Residents will be able to raise any concerns or questions they have with officers from the City Neighbourhood Police Team and a member of the City Council's Neighbourhood Service. That's it for now. I'm Steve Walker and I'll be back later in the programme with more news.
A young woman from Winchester who had childhood eye cancer is raising money to help the charity that supported her through her illness. 19-year-old Katie Peller has organised a concert at St Paul's Church next week. The concert will feature some of Hampshire's top young musicians. Katie told me why it's so important to her.
When I was 8, I was actually diagnosed with a cancer called retinoblastoma, and there was this amazing charity that supported us through the sort of whole diagnosis and everything after that, really. So as a result of the cancer, I lost my right eye and I now have an artificial eye, and there's a charity called CHECK, the Childhood Eye Cancer Trust, and they just do everything from like financial support to emotional support. And one of the best things they've done for me is arranged meetups for other teenagers with retinoblastoma. So I've got some amazing friends now through that, and that's been so valuable to me. So I'm organising this concert to really give back to them and raise some money for them and also raise awareness of retinoblastoma. So for me, it's always been a big part of my life. I play the violin and I play in local youth orchestras, and music's just a great way to be able to express yourself, and I think it's so cool that I can put on this concert for CHECKED and be able to sort of combine music, which has helped me through a lot, and also CHECKED, who have also helped us.
It must have been so tough for you going through that and for other young people going through that, and how important is it to have somebody by your side to support you and have that organisation there for you?
It's so important. I mean, most children who have retinoblastoma are under 6, but I was 8, so I was sort of a fair bit older. So a lot of the people I've talked to don't really remember their treatment and stuff, but it's so important to be able to have some people around you who you can talk to who've been through the same thing, or the support workers at the charity who are just ready to help you with pretty much anything you can come up with, and especially through lockdown as well. That was really important, and they helped a lot with all of that.
And how are you doing now?
So now I'm doing really well. I've never let having one eye stop me doing anything. I'm going to university to study medicine next year, which has basically been a dream of mine for as long as I can remember, inspired probably by the doctors who treated me, and I'm really excited to be able to do that and hopefully make a difference to other people's lives as well.
And tell me a bit about the concert. What sort of music is going to be played there?
It's a bit of a range of music. I would say it's mostly what you might call light classics, so well-known classical music. All the pieces are sort of under 5 minutes in length, but there's also a fair bit of film music and songs that you might know from other places in there as well. And we've got sort of a whole range. We've got brass groups, wind groups, singing, string groups, and there's basically something for everyone.
And a lot of people have come along to play and support you with this.
Yeah, I think we've probably got between 15 and 20 performers, and they're all local young musicians from Hampshire. A lot of them are in the Hampshire County Youth Orchestra. Some of them are on the Hampshire Specialist Music course at Peter Simmons. So they're all absolutely excellent young musicians, and it's really cool that they've come out to support me doing this, and I'm very grateful to all of them.
So tell me a bit about the concert. When's it happening, where's it happening, and how can people find out more?
So it's on the 6th of July. At St Paul's Church in Winchester, which is just by the train station. It starts at 7:30 and we're expecting it to run for about an hour. If you want to find out more, there's an Instagram account which is at Katie's_RB, or I've also got a GoFundMe page which you should be able to search for. It's a fundraiser for CHECKED, and that has a bit more information about the concert as well.
And people can just come along?
Yeah, so anyone can come along. We'd be very grateful for any donations that you would be able to give us, but there aren't any tickets required, so you can come along and just enjoy the concert.
And now for more news from around our city. South Western Railway is advising customers to check before travelling next week, as the Train Drivers Union ASLEV takes further industrial action in the form of an overtime ban. The company says while the majority of trains will run, there will be a reduced service across the network. An amended timetable will be published on Friday. The RMT union has also called further strike action on the 20th, 22nd and 29th of July. Meanwhile, more strikes are taking place at the University of Winchester this week. Support staff who are members of Unison and UCU have walked out over pay. It's part of an ongoing dispute with more action planned for next month. Winchester police have continued their crackdown against drugs in the city centre. They used a rapid scan machine to test people at the old jailhouse pub as a condition of entry. As a result, a woman was given a community resolution for possession of Class A drugs. There was a similar operation at Alfie's last month. Police say it follows concerns raised by pubs about drug use in their venues. And after a number of high-profile shop closures in Winchester, the popular jewellery and accessories chain Claire's is bucking the trend. It's opening a new store in the city on Friday at the bottom of the high street. And that's the news from around Winchester for today. I'm Steve Walker on Winchester Radio.
Hi, I'm Paul Blitz, and it's time for this week's Community Shout-Out. And we're going to start with a good luck mention to Winchester Rugby Club President Robbie Sanderson, who set off an Ace Cycle Challenge this week to raise awareness of motor neurone disease. He's cycling in memory of his wife Kate, who died of the condition 8 years ago, and his rugby hero Doddy Weir, who passed away this last year. He's pedalling between Winchester RFC and Melrose RFC, where Doddy first started his rugby career. Robbie and a team of friends cycling with him aim to arrive there on Saturday. Winchester Action on Climate Change has given a thank you and congratulations to pupils in Year 8 at Perrins School. They raised £111 for the charity whilst doing a sponsored bike ride. The pupils were also wanting to highlight that you can get around without using a car. And staying with the bike theme, a shout out to the Recycle Bike Hub. They're a small group of volunteers who refresh, repair and rebuild unwanted bikes, making them fit to ride again. Each bike is serviced and signed off by a qualified mechanic and then sold to raise money for Naomi House and Jack's Place. And in the 2 years since the group formed, they have sold over 430 bikes and have raised over £30,000 for the charity. The volunteers are currently in need of donations of children's bike to meet the demand. So if you can help, please visit their website recyclebikehub.com. That's recyclebikehub.com. Great job everybody there. More shout outs next week.
Winchester Radio.
Hat Fair comes to town on Friday and Saturday this week. Entertainers will take to the streets of the city, Abbey Gardens and Cathedral Close. The annual event was put under threat after losing funding last year. With more information about what to expect, here's director Andrew Loretto.
So, Hat Fair kicks off this Friday. We have a couple of acts in the High Street at 12:30, which leads into our opening Carnival Parade, which kicks off at 1 o'clock in Cathedral Grounds. And we'll do a loop around the High Street, stop in the High Street before coming in and finishing back in the Cathedral Grounds. And hundreds of young people from local schools and colleges, as well as various other local arts groups, theatre groups, and also we're collaborating with older people's organisations such as St John's. So that'll be an explosion of colour themes that we have asked people to shout about, because the theme of the carnival this year is shout about it. So all the different groups taking part of and interpret that in their own way. So hence why they're going to be pausing for a little bit in the High Street when they will literally be shouting about what they want to shout about. So that's a lovely way to start the festival. During the rest of the day on Friday we'll have acts performing in Cathedral Grounds in the outer gardens there. We'll have the Hatters of course performing, as well as some visiting work, and there'll be work performing in the High Street, which leads us nicely into Friday evening, where we have our Friday evening headline show, which is a show called Ancient Futures. And Ancient Futures is the only ticketed show we're having at the festival this year, so we've in fact kept 99.9% of the festival free, which is fantastic given our funding challenges this year. But by buying a ticket for Ancient Futures, you're actually subsidising that 99.9% and keeping it free. So Ancient Futures, it's an interesting show to describe. It's a mix between a 90s rave rave. It is suitable for the family, isn't Dad? West African tribal culture, hints of science fiction, big music and movement show. And that'll look brilliant in the back of the bus station. It's performing on Friday at 5 o'clock and 7:30, and you can book tickets in advance online, or you can buy on the day, but do book in advance online if you can via our box office at Play to the Crowd.
And then there's more to come on the Saturday as well.
Yeah, so we kick off again on Saturday mid-morning. It's a slightly bigger programme on the Saturday, as well as taking over the High Street and Cathedral Grounds. We'll also have work happening on the Broadway and in Abbey Gardens, and again at the back of the bus station, Busquet Yard. You can expect on Saturday a mix of dance, entertainment, music, lots of local talent, as well as international work, obviously the Hatters in the mix. And for those listeners who aren't familiar with what we mean by Hatters, those are brilliantly skilled international street buskers, highly skilled, highly accomplished circus artists, acrobats, comedians, which are at the core of what Hat Fair is about. We get our name from the tradition of collecting money in a hat, which continues to this day. As part of the festival, we culminate on the Saturday evening with the High Priestess of Pop and the Disco Druids, which is an original commission for Hat Fair, made by a company called Gobbledygook Theatre. They have already been working with local people to explore their guilty disco secrets. The show will also be out and about with their Rave Rover on both the Friday and the Saturday, talking to members of the public and finding out about the songs that they love to dance to, particularly the guilty secrets. And that's all going to culminate in the finale party show on the Broadway on Saturday evening. So look out for the High Priestess of Pop and the Disco Druids.
Sounds amazing. So much going on over those 2 days. It must have taken a lot of organising.
I hope that the festival feels full. It is a smaller festival this year. Longer term listeners will know that Hat Fair usually runs over 3 days. We lost our MPO Arts Council funding last year in November, so that was very late in the day to find out that decision. So we've been working extremely hard to find other sources of funding, including Arts Council funding, but it's not at the same level. So it is a smaller festival, but the main thing is we have a festival this year. But yeah, we've got a great range of work this year. We haven't compromised at all on our commitment to local talent, to international artists, to young people, to diversity, championing voices that maybe are underrepresented in Winchester at other times of year, and that includes local voices. And our hope is to build up to a bigger festival again next year in 2024, which is our 50th birthday.
So with all the challenges you've faced, you must be really proud of what you've been able to achieve and what people are going to be looking forward to this weekend.
Definitely. I think all of the team here at Play to the Crowd has played a massive part in turning it around in an incredibly quick fashion so that we can have a festival this year. And we've had a wonderful response from the public in terms of our volunteer recruitment. So, I'm looking forward to it as always. For me, Hat Fair is about joy. It's about celebration. It can also allow a little bit of challenge within that joy. Some of the subject matter that some of the artists will explore will provoke thinking and questions, but in a very positive way, so it's still a joyous thing. Because, at the end of the day, so much of the work we will feature is rooted in, real world events, whether that be, the climate crisis or cost of living or whatever. But equally, a lot of the work that performs here is simply about entertainment. So we have everything in the mix.
And we'll bring you some reaction from the Hat Fair in next week's programme. Until then, goodbye and thank you for listening.